less than 3 months before 9/11, Cooper would say this.
And whatever is going to happen that they're going to blame on Osama bin Laden, don't you even believe it.
9/11 then happens, and
he clocked it before it happened? Nah, bro, I'm not gonna lie. They had to get him out of there. Insane conspiracy theorist who turned out to be right.
from Alex Jones and Bill Cooper to Edward Snowden, Terry Davies, and Bob Marley, society's so-called
Bro, you mean to tell me Alex Jones is just airing things out and they didn't try to kill him? Come on, bro. Isn't Edward Snowden in Russia? Bob Marley is exposing the conspiracy theories? Isn't this the guy who did the Behold the Pale Horse?
conspiracy theorists have turned out to be right time and time again. Some of their stories became vindicated when the fool's story broke.
Damn.
He was the guy who told me about Epstein's Island more than a decade ago, and I thought it was the craziest thing I'd ever heard.
But most never saw the light of day because the search for
Who is
truth
that?
has a habit of pushing people to the very
that
edge
Epstein?
like this.
Hello?
What the hell is that? Is somebody being tortured?
So let it be written. So let it be done.
Well, I'm King Terry, and learned how to purify myself in a horribly impure environment. It's pretty rough living
I'm not gonna lie. He doesn't seem okay though.
homeless and
That's Terry Davis, a diagnosed schizophrenic and brilliant computer programmer who built an entire operating system by himself in a programming language he invented. And he said
What?
God told him to build a temple, so he called the operating system Temple OS. In his last years, he was mostly homeless, drifting across the American West, uploading chaotic videos from motel rooms and parking lots. Terry had spent years claiming that
Yo,
CIA
I'm not gonna lie. This dude lived a crazy.
agents were monitoring his computer
Nah,
and
don't
that
worry
they were
about it.
everywhere online. He said they glow in the dark, a phrase that became the go-to slang for identifying federal agents in public spaces.
What?
The CIA glow in the dark. You can see them if you're driving. You just run them over.
Then he was hit by a train in Oregon in 2018 at the
What?
age of 48. But his followers didn't accept that it was an accident.
Yeah, my
and
shit
now
is
he's
chopped.
become synonymous with the conspiracy theorists that no one listened to.
Oh my
because
God.
paranoia is a very effective tool for discrediting someone. If you're truthfully unwell, everyone eventually stops listening
Yeah, they're gonna
to you. But
automatically
if you're
assume you're crazy, and they're gonna think that everything that you're saying is a bunch of bull.
not, it's a brilliant way to engineer that same outcome. Ernest Hemingway, one of the most celebrated writers in history, was plagued by this exact strategy. In his final years, he was telling his wife, friends, and doctors that the FBI was watching his every move. Of course, nobody believed him, and his
Who
own
is
wife
that?
thought he'd lost his mind. He went through multiple rounds of electroshock therapy, which destroyed his memory and, by his
What?
own account, his ability to even write. So, he took matters into his own hands on July 2nd, 1961. Years later, a biographer
this?
filed a Freedom of Information Act request and found a large file signed off by J. Edgar Hoover himself.
Damn.
Oh, I found this the other day about Hemingway. Hemingway always thought that the FBI was trying to get him. And
Bro, who is Hemingway?
apparently they actually were.
Really?
Yeah, they actually were. The FBI investigated Ernest Hemingway for decades, with surveillance beginning in the 1940s due to concerns about his activities in Cuba and his associations with individuals suspected of communist ties. While initially dismissed as paranoia, it was later revealed that Hemingway's fears were grounded in reality, and the FBI did monitor him, even tapping his phones and intercepting his mail. The surveillance continued throughout his later years, including his time in the hospital, and may have contributed to his mental anguish and suicide.
So why did they do it?
Communist
Well,
ties?
first, he was spending a lot of time in communist Cuba. Second, look
What? Oh, wow.
at his two most famous books, For Whom the Bell Tolls romanticized an American fighting alongside communists in Spain, while A Farewell to Arms is packed full of anti-war messaging. Massive influence combined with a message like this is not a good combo in the eyes of certain government agencies.
Damn,
Either
bro.
way, the FBI had been watching him, but everyone around him said he was just paranoid. Few know this feeling better than the most famous conspiracy theorist alive today.
When you've got the same FBI.
They're making the frogs gay. Nah, that clip is dead the funniest. Cause like, why would you say that? I think they actually were making the frogs gay though. I can't lie. Alex Jones, bro. I don't really have an opinion on him.
A couple of years ago with Jeffrey Epstein, with the Lolita Express, with Bill Clinton on at least 16 round-trip flights to the File Island, he got convicted of running.
Alex Jones was talking about Epstein long before the files became undeniable. He also called out numerous false flag military operations.
Wait, he exposed Bohemian Grove, right? He snuck in and then blew the lid off of it.
Repeatedly told everyone that they happened once, so they will happen again.
The same ones that staged Gulf of Tonkin, the same ones that staged the mass shootings of Operation Gladio. Right. I can speak in this accent as well. Yeah.
Nah, I'm not gonna lie. Piers Morgan, he tries to do this thing where he's like listening to you, but he doesn't actually listen to listen. He listens to respond. You could see this is cut, but I'm still getting that vibe that he's trying to make him sound like he's just crazy. Why are we sitting here and acting like the government isn't doing heinous, debaucherous that we don't know about, and we won't find out until years after the fact, because then it already happened? That's what happens all the time. Look at the Epstein files. I believe that they did this. That they done a lot of crazy shit. That school shooting he kept saying was fake. He lost the case and lost money, and he had to pay all the people. No way. I mean, saying that school shooting is fake is kind of crazy. I'm gonna be honest. If you're gonna say a school shooting is fake, you got to be able to prove why. You can't just be openly saying that. That's crazy.
Governments have staged terror attacks throughout history, or
He said
allowed
that?
terrorists to attack as a pretext to invade and enslave the populations.
And for years, Jones warned that the US government had built a mass surveillance system to spy on its own citizens. He filed 9/11 in the same category as other false flags, and he wasn't the only one who went there before it became fashionable to do so.
We're living in a surveillance state right now. They have all the surveillance on us, and then they're going to implement AI to be able to read through all of the data, to be able to predict what you're going to do. They're going to be able to use it to basically police you if you do anything that they don't want you to do. And they're going to use the guides of political violence, and they're going to use the guides of extremism and all that stuff to do that. Oh, it's going to lead down to extremism and political violence. We got to take you to jail, buddy.
This is Bill Cooper, a former naval intelligence officer who spent the end of his days on a hilltop in rural Arizona, broadcasting his rambling theories via a shortwave radio to anyone who tuned in. He was the author of the conspiracy manifesto, Behold a Pale Horse.
Damn.
His ideas...
Nah, did you read that? Read that. I'm not even going to say it. Do you see it? Oh my God, what the hell? Is that real?
Broadcasting his rambling theories via a shortwave radio
I'm
to
always
anyone
connected.
who tune in. He was the author of the conspiracy manifesto, Behold a Pale Horse. His ideas were the forerunners of some of the biggest conspiracy theories around today, like alien mythology, the Illuminati, and the mysteries surrounding JFK.
Nah, all that stuff is so interesting.
Warning his followers that a major terrorist attack was coming on American soil, and that the government would use a man called Osama bin Laden as the scapegoat.
Damn.
He had watched the now infamous CNN interview with bin Laden in his hideout and couldn't believe what he was seeing. And you've got to pause on this particular point because it is utterly bizarre, and a lot of people have just completely forgotten about it.
They interviewed him?
In 1997, CNN journalist Peter Arnett went to Afghanistan and interviewed Osama bin Laden on camera. Bin Laden then used the interview to basically declare war on America on television and broadcast this to the world.
What?
You declared a jihad against the United States. Can you tell us why?
The comments on the original broadcast say what everyone's thinking.
How did they interview him? He's just in a random cave?
USA, how'd you find him?
Right.
Reporter, snitches get stitches. And CIA, FBI, and Interpol were searching for him like crazy at the time, and this report...
Man, yeah, exactly. You mean to tell me a random ass reporter can find him, but not the CIA and the FBI? Come on.
Just found him that easy. The point being, either every intelligence agency in America is incompetent, or they knew exactly where he was and weren't pulling out all the stops to catch him. The intelligence community's argument is that knowing roughly where someone is in a lawless tribal region of Afghanistan, and then being able to capture or kill them are two completely different things. The US had no troops on the ground in Afghanistan at this point, but the counterpoint still stands, and Cooper argues that bin Laden was already a CIA creation, funded and trained during the Soviet-Afghan War in the 1980s. CNN were merely maneuvering him into a position to justify future military operations and give people a face and name to pin those future headlines to. Then, on June 28, 2001, less than 3 months before 9/11, Cooper would say this on air.
And whatever is going to happen that they're going to blame on Osama bin Laden, don't you even believe it.
9/11 then happens, and
He clocked it before it happened? Nah, bro, I'm not gonna lie. They had to get him out of there.
on November 5th,
They
2
had to
months
get him
after
up
the
out of there.
attack,
Nah, he was fucking up the plan, bro.
he
Because
was
after this, do you know like the ripple effect that happened after this? That's when they started implementing the Patriot Act, and they started taking a little bit of freedoms and stuff like that. Come on.
shot dead by Apache
on.
County Sheriff's deputies outside his home.
What?
Deputies said they'd come to serve an arrest warrant for tax evasion charges he'd been dodging since 1998.
Tax evasion? Are you dead?
But they did arrive at 11:40 at night, while also using plainclothes officers to bait him out of his house, and then that was the end of his story.
Oh, nah, bro. That was their cover up. Oh, yeah, tax evasion. You mean so they're going to come to you at 11 p.m. for tax evasion? Get the fuck out of here.
Now, whatever you think about the event of 9/11 itself, it definitely was an inflection point for a new wave of conspiracy theories, some of which came true pretty quickly.
That's insane.
Because a couple of years later, Edward Snowden walked out of a facility in Hawaii with tens of thousands of classified documents and pulled the pin on the biggest leak in a
Bro, do you guys believe this, or do you think that he's a shill? I'm gonna be honest, him being in Russia kind of leads me to believe that he's he actually leaked everything. You know what's crazy though? When this news broke, I still remember it. I was in 7th grade and we learned like the NSA was spying on us, and I had an iPod, right? So I was thinking, mind you, I'm in my room. It's late at night, no lights on. I'm covering my camera like this because I think that the government is watching me, and I'm like freaking the fuck out. Bro, like they're just gonna turn the camera on and see me. It's in the middle of the night, bro. And I'm like myself. I can't lie, that was hilarious. Yes, bro. They were definitely, I mean, they were probably spying, but like, bro, I'm like in 7th grade.
generation.
And this became a mass surveillance program called Stellar Wind, which they said was supposed to monitor the phone.
Oh yeah, they definitely see my meat. I can't lie. But I be angle fishing, so it's all good. They probably think my shit massive.
Phone calls and internet communications, emails, and things like that of everybody in the United States and around the world.
He documented backdoors in Google, Apple, Facebook, and Microsoft. Virtually every big tech company was compromised and cataloging your data while censoring information at the government's request.
What?
Which turned out even worse when the Twitter files leaked a few years later. And all of that time, the Director of National Intelligence had lied through his teeth under oath to Congress.
But what does it mean for a
What? He lied under oath?
That's when the Twitter files leaked a few years later, and all of that time, the Director of National Intelligence had lied through his teeth under oath to Congress.
Wow.
But what does it mean for a democracy when you can lie under oath to Congress, and the congressman even knows you're lying to them, but they're afraid to correct you?
But what most people don't know
Crazy.
is that this started years earlier.
This is all theatrics, bro. It's all a game. That's crazy. The people who are in power, bro. Like, it's crazy. Power is everything. And all of this stuff is just to keep us appeased, thinking that we got a voice. Wow. Yeah, I'm not surprised by that. I can't even lie, bro. It's just crazy. Like, everybody knows this is, and we just go through the bullshit and live through the bullshit every day, and we have no choice. Like, isn't that crazy to think?
With a guy named William Binney, one of the agency's best codebreakers. William had designed a surveillance system called ThinThread that could collect intelligence and still at least attempt to maintain privacy, but after 9/11, the NSA scrapped it, killed the legal safeguards, and used his own work to spy on the entire country without telling anyone.
After 9/11, they took one of the programs I had done, or the back end part of it, and started to use it to spy on everybody in this country.
When he tried to blow the
Insane.
whistle through proper channels, the FBI showed up at his house with guns drawn while he was getting out of the shower.
And they came in and pointed the gun at me when I was getting out of the shower at the time, so they pointed a gun right at my old head, said, hey. I wasn't too upset. I just said, yeah, I suppose I could get dressed here. This is something the KGB, the Stasi, or the Gestapo would have loved to have had about their populations. And just because we call ourselves a democracy doesn't mean we will stay that way.
Snowden himself said that William was a part of a group of early NSA whistleblowers who tried to expose similar programs before he did, and each one got destroyed for doing so. One of them, a senior NSA executive called Thomas Drake, found that the NSA was spending billions on surveillance programs that were both illegal and broken. After he reported it internally and nothing happened, he decided to take his story to the Baltimore Sun. He was then immediately apprehended and charged under the Espionage Act, facing 35 years in prison, though the charges were dropped before the trial.
Yeah.
So then what happened? There's no way they just let him live. They charged him with 35 years and then it was dropped. So then what? He just copped a plea?
Is part of, shall we say, the group of early NSA whistleblowers who came with Thomas Drake, Bill Binney, Kirk Wiebe, I believe, and Ed Loomis. And these guys all got their doors kicked in, you know, they got harassed.
But it's not just serious intelligence guys and journalists who get caught up in these kinds of controversies. Bob Marley's music tells you a lot about what he thought of power and the government. His entire worldview was built on the idea that the systems running the world were corrupt, exploitative, and fundamentally designed to keep ordinary people down. You could even say he inspired an entire generation of conspiracy theorists. Listen to Alex Jones talk about him on InfoWars.
What?
I was listening to Bob Marley again the other day. I was on a Bob Marley jag. And I'm like, this guy was Alex Jones before I was born. It's a powerful song. He goes in to talk about the technocracy and the scientific elite wanting to kill humanity and destroy our children. Every song's poetry. We're the survivors.
You've probably heard of the Rastafarian word Babylon. In Rastafari, Babylon envelops
we
the
don't
police,
need no
the government.
Babylon money. We don't need no Babylon money, man. We got nature. We got the herb, man. Yeah.
The colonial system, basically the entire Western power system that keeps ordinary people at the bottom. Bob was preaching to millions that this system was their enemy. Then, just as his career was reaching its peak, this happened.
Got melanoma.
Entertainer and reggae star Bob Marley, Rita Marley, and the manager of the Wailers, Don Taylor, are now patients in the University Hospital after receiving gunshot wounds during a shooting incident which took place at Marley's home at 56 Hope Road tonight.
Bob then left Jamaica the next morning and didn't return for months. Jamaica's government had been moving towards socialism, which the US saw as a major threat, and he believed he'd been...
they had to get him out. They had to get him up out of there. They had to get him up out of there. They didn't like that. Not in America's backyard.
Targeted as a result. It was a classic CIA-backed coup, as the island was now being flooded with cheap guns, drugs, propaganda, and brutal
Here we go. They do this shit all the time.
Policing tactics. According to documents in the CIA archive that you can see here, the Washington-backed campaign left over 750 people dead, and Edward Seeger, the US-backed candidate, won the election. Declassified files have since confirmed that Marley had his own CIA file and was labeled a subversive.
Do you think Bob Marley was dangerous?
Yes. He was very dangerous on all sorts of levels. He was dangerous in a very
What is a subversive? Hold on, go back. What is subversive? Let me look this up. What? It says subversive refers to anything intended to undermine or overthrow an established system, institution, or set of beliefs. So he was definitely a threat.
And was labeled a subversive.
Do you think Bob Marley was dangerous?
Yes. He was very dangerous on all sorts of levels. He was dangerous in a very basic way. The idea in 1976 that you would get poor Jamaicans to start thinking for themselves in itself was dangerous. And the idea that this guy with this uncombed hair,
never let some shit
speaking
happen,
terribly, becoming this voice of freedom and black struggle.
Bob Marley's manager, who took most of the bullets that night of the shooting, wrote in his memoir that he believed the CIA was behind it. It's now thought they might have paid for it with drugs and guns. Bob Marley then dies of cancer at age 36, long before any of the CIA files were declassified. He never got to see the proof that the world he'd been warning people about was real. And the era he represented, where a musician could threaten the establishment by telling people to think for themselves, died with him. But controlling entire governments is somehow pretty mainstream compared to what others have.
So damn, he was that strong. He was that mentally strong. Like he knew that what was going down, and he found a way to articulate it in a way that people could absorb it and resonate with them, and spread the message by singing that shit. That's power. I'm not gonna lie. Bob Marley's a legend.
Exposed. This is Ted Gunderson, who once ran the FBI's Los Angeles field office. A serious guy with deep agency experience and knowledge. When he retired, he spent decades on the lecture circuit warning everyone about government mind control programs, blackmail operations, and potential ritual-style abuse.
A long time ago, I talked about how they have these islands, they fly, they compromise children, but I learned all this from Ted Gunderson 20 plus years ago. He was in line to be the FBI director. He was the head of the FBI in Los Angeles.
Jeffrey's operation might feel new, but Gunderson tells you that it's probably just the latest installment of a strategy running for over 50 years.
He came out and he was the one that explained to me about how they use these blackmail rings, elements of the CIA, and foreign intelligence groups, and how they would basically make people have sex with children to be part of these clubs and these cults they were setting up.
Gunderson also linked these kinds of
not even a
operations with
conspiracy,
possible
bro.
satanic ritual abuse. But in the late 80s and 90s, this was lumped in with the satanic panic and treated as mass hysteria. That's a big reason why he lost his credibility.
I'm not an anti-government person, I'm an anti-corruptionist. I love my country, and I will continue, as long as I'm alive, to continue to expose.
That's literally crazy to think, like, they just label you crazy, they'll label you talking about satanic shit. Isn't the satanic shit real, though?
This evil element that's permeated throughout our society.
Crazy, bro.
Like all the others, they called him paranoid and delusional. He was labeled a crackpot, desperate for attention. But lo and behold, down the line, many of the things Gunderson warned about were indeed proved true. One of the creepiest concerned a religious cult called the Finders, a Washington DC based cult he described as a CIA child kidnapping organization. In 1987, police in Tallahassee, Florida found
Not surprised by that at all, bro.
purchasing them, training them, and kidnapping them. The investigation was then hastily shut down.
No, the Finders is a cult that was caught trafficking children, and the CIA squashed the Florida.
And then Gunderson got it raided in D.C. and found a whole CIA facility with the snuff films, everything.
Telex machine.
And so he told me about all this, and I thought he was crazy.
Anyone who repeated Gunderson's claims were immediately dismissed. That wasn't until
Like,
2019.
imagine seeing some crazy like that, and people tell you, "Nah, bro, you're just fucking insane." How would you feel if you had like damning information, bro, and people just didn't believe you? I don't know how to feel in that moment. I feel like I would just be like, fuck everybody then.
When the FBI declassifies 650 pages confirming that the CIA had been involved in the investigation, and that the State Department had mysteriously helped bury it, and that a former member of the group had admitted to doing security work for the FBI, NSA, and other government agencies. And the founding leader's wife had been a CIA employee for 21 years, and it was classed as an internal matter for the agency. It literally took over 30 years for Gunderson to be proved right in his belief that...
And what are you going to say after 30 years? Nothing. People are just going to continue. They do that deliberately.
Intelligence agencies were in the loop and buried the case. We don't know why, but he always alleged a link to other ritualistic practices across America, including Bohemian Grove, and some of his early ideas are now creepier than ever in light of what they found on Mr. Jeffrey's private island.
These sell for like $100,000, private collections. The kids are sold for $50,000 on an auction block.
What?
Paul has attended 6 auctions, as few as 6 and as many as 36 kids, boys and girls, mostly young kids, were auctioned off for up to $50,000 each. It's big business.
While no agency linked to the extent alleged by Gunderson or Alex Jones has been formally established, nobody was convicted of a crime in relation to what the police found that day. Ted also often talked about MKUltra, which was declassified in his era, but he always claimed it was wildly misunderstood in how far it went. The goal was to hijack the brain, altering or erasing memories or creating assassins you'd kill on command with no memory of being programmed. It started with CIA employees, but that quickly backfired, so they had to start testing on the public instead. And to do that, they came up with something called Operation Midnight Climax.
So they went to San Francisco.
John Kiriakou. Yo, how do y'all feel about John Kiriakou, bro? I feel like he's a fed, bro. Because how do you just walk around and you're alive and you're able to do all these podcasts? I don't know. The thing is, it's not just American intelligence, of course.
They rented a safe house and they hired prostitutes to go out on the street, pick up Johns, bring them back to the safe house, dose the Johns with LSD, and just see what happens.
While these guys were losing their minds, CIA operatives sat behind one-way mirrors watching the whole thing while sipping a whiskey and smoking a cigarette.
No
Where
way.
this went off the rails.
Like it was just another day.
In a handful of ways, in many ways.
What?
Was testing on unwitting subjects. Things such as LSD and a variety of other substances. Yeah, whoops.
This was back when people were naive about drugs, so just imagine for a second that you begin to hallucinate wildly and you have absolutely no explanation for what's happening
just start
to you.
freaking out.
One of the main guys caught up in MKUltra was an army biochemist called Frank Olson. He was working on classified research when they slipped LSD into his drink at a work retreat without telling him. 9 days later, he throws himself through the window of a hotel room in New York. The CIA told his family he'd had a breakdown, but his son Eric believed his father had witnessed something he wasn't supposed to see.
So how did they find out they put LSD in his drink?
The use of bioweapons on prisoners. Eric had his father's body dug up, and the autopsy found blunt force trauma to the skull. The Manhattan DA reclassified the death from to homicide. That story was then later made into the Netflix show Wormwood.
I was told that your father has had an accident.
When Congress finally started asking questions
Hold on, I'm gonna have to watch that. That sounds good.
in 1973, the CIA director ordered that the MKUltra files should be destroyed.
In 1973, the CIA director ordered mass destruction of the MKUltra files. What we know comes from accidentally surviving documents, meaning this is a sanitized version.
Burning the files is one way to bury the truth, but there's another pattern of scrubbing the evidence here that speaks for itself.
Wow.
And you're probably starting to notice it by now.
They never want the
This is
information
Gary
to come
Webb,
out.
a journalist who proved the CIA had knowingly allowed drug traffickers to funnel crack into black
I think it's a show. It might be a show. It's called like Wormwood.
communities in LA throughout the 80s. 3 of the biggest newspapers in America coordinated to discredit him. His own editors abandoned him, and he lost everything. Then he was found dead in 2004 with 2 gunshot wounds to the head, ruled self-inflicted. The CIA's own Inspector General later confirmed he'd been right all along. Then there's Frank Serpico, a New York cop who spent years trying to report corruption inside the NYPD. Nobody wanted to hear it, and during a drug raid in Brooklyn, his fellow officers let him walk in alone and he took a bullet to the face. They then made a film about it with Al Pacino called Serpico, but the department never apologized. And then there's David Kelly, who was one of the UK's top weapons experts, who told a BBC journalist that the British government had hyped up its case for invading Iraq. He was then outed, dragged before Parliament, and then found dead in the woods near his home, again ruled self-inflicted. Years later, a public...
I'm telling you, the moment you a real threat, they get you out of there quick. They don't waste time with you at all, bro. They make you look crazy and they kill
inquiry
you.
confirmed everything he'd said, and a panel of doctors and scientists doubted the official cause of death. And that pattern of convenient fatalities continues to the present day. In 2024, a quality manager at Boeing called Josh Barnett had been raising concerns for years about safety shortcuts.
Yeah. Man, them Boeing 737s, bro. I'm not gonna lie. Them shits are not safe. We see that shit every day. Didn't they kill him? You might just consume too many Doom videos. I do.
On the 737 MAX production line. He was then found dead in his car in the midst of his whistleblower lawsuit against the company. And again, it was of course ruled self-inflicted.
It's always that.
But there
it's
is
always
one story buried in all of this that probably affects you right now, and not in a historical or political sense. If you're one of 98% of Americans, there's a cancer-causing chemical coursing through your veins and arteries right now. And
bro,
the
chill
guy
out.
who warned us about it was yet again dismissed as a delusional conspiracy theorist. He is
bro, stop playing. My heart just dropped.
Billett, a corporate defense lawyer in Cincinnati whose entire career was spent representing chemical companies. So he was about
Yeah, that checks out.
the last person you'd expect to take on one of the most notorious in history. In 1998, a farmer approached him to say his cattle were dying, foaming at the mouth with their teeth turning black and tumors growing out of their sides. He'd filmed this all on a home video camera, and the footage is genuinely horrible, with cows stumbling around and collapsing by a creek that runs downstream from a DuPont landfill. He'd already tried local regulators, state agencies, and every lawyer in the region, but nobody would touch it because in that part of West Virginia, the company he suspected of being behind it, called DuPont, was one that you didn't want to mess with.
Yo, I'm not gonna lie, this is low-key like Wano from One Piece. Oh my god, all the pollution and shit messing with the people.
What Robert found when he
chemicals
started
on
pulling at the thread would consume the next 25 years of his life.
No
He
way.
requested internal documents from DuPont that pointed to a chemical called PFOA,
What?
also known as C8, which was used in manufacturing Teflon, the non-stick coating on your pans, your waterproof jackets, your microwave popcorn bags, basically everyday products in every household in the country.
Stop
DuPont had then
playing.
been dumping this into the local water supply, and their own internal study showed
Stop
they knew exactly
playing, bro. Oh, PFAS. Because of the forever chemicals, right? PFAS. Oh, yeah.
the damage it was
I know
capable
about
of
this.
inflicting. They'd found elevated cancer rates in their own factory workers.
Yup.
They tested the blood of pregnant employees and found the chemical in their unborn children.
What?
They knew it accumulated in human tissue, and they knew it didn't break down ever. This is Robert speaking out
forever
about
chemicals.
it himself.
We're talking about chemical contamination that goes far beyond, excuse me, far beyond one farmer's property in West Virginia. We're talking about contamination now that's in drinking water all across this country and now all across the world.
Today,
What?
the term forever chemicals that you're probably familiar with is basically all because of his work.
We are now bringing a new
Man,
case.
we filled with what? We got forever chemicals, microplastics, everything, bro. We're just filled random chemicals that we eat from industrial grade foods. Oh my
Case where we're
god.
seeking to represent everyone in the country who now has these chemicals in their blood. But what we now know is PFOA is just one of many of these man-made synthetic chemicals that are getting out in our
Crazy.
water, in our blood.
As Robert says, it doesn't even stop there because these chemicals have been leached across the US.
Just outside of Bangor,
How?
Maine is Herman High School. Some 500 kids come here each day to learn, but they can't drink the water.
We're alleging that 3M and DuPont
What?
created these chemicals, had the science that showed just how dangerous they were, how toxic
let
they
it
were,
rock.
how they were going to last forever.
Seen correlations with thyroid disease, certain kinds of cancer, kidney disease, liver dysfunction. They're called forever.
How are we supposed to live our lives after hearing this shit's in our water, bro? Like, what do we do?
Chemicals because they stay in your body.
They're in the tap water, they're in the rain, they're in the food supply. They've even reached the Arctic and other countries.
What?
So this disaster is not only contained to the US.
Bro, so what do we do? Now we got hella chemicals in our body that we can't get out?
DuPont settled the initial lawsuits for $670 million.
No way.
And the litigation is still ongoing. The story was eventually made into a Hollywood film, Dark Waters.
Bro, they making a movie out of everything. Goddamn, Hollywood.
In 2019, starring Mark Ruffalo as Robert, and a documentary, The Devil We Know, which followed the families in West Virginia whose water had been poisoned. But
Crazy.
no one listened until the damage was done. And that's the way it goes time after time after time. They get called crazy. They lose their career, their family, all their life, and
There's
then
no way we just have to accept that.
10 years later, a document surfaces, a court makes a ruling, or a journalist
We can't purify that out of our water?
finally gets hold of the file, and the lie is suddenly the truth. Maybe this
Man, I'm not gonna lie. Life is a lot. Like, we live our life and we go through our like daily routine. I live a simple life. I don't know if you guys live a simple life, but I live a simple life. None of this even crosses my mind on the day. Like, I think about this shit, but you don't think that it's like how much stuff is really affecting your everyday life. Kind of crazy to think, man. I'm not gonna lie.